I spent 45 years inside the tax system, including several years inside one of the biggest CPA firms in the world. I've watched the wealthy cut their taxes, sometimes to zero, while other business owners overpay taxes, thousands and tens of thousands every year. Today, I'll share the insider strategies I learned to help you finally take control of your taxes. Now, what's the number one thing most tax professionals don't do for their clients? They do no planning. What they do is they spend their time responding to your questions. The challenge is, how do you know which questions to ask? Our job as tax professionals, I should say, because I'm a tax professional, our job is to ask you the right questions. One of those questions, how do you make your money? But nobody asks you the second question, what are you going to do with your money? And that makes a bigger difference. Let me give you an example. Let's say that you had $10,000 to invest and you invested at 10% over 30 years. Now, if you paid 40% in taxes just on the income, then at the end of 30 years, you'd have about $60,000. You're welcome to run those numbers. If you didn't pay tax on the income, the compounding effect of not paying tax on the income means you would have close to $200,000 after 30 years. Why isn't your CPA telling you that? Why isn't your tax preparer telling you that? Here's the thing. It's not a trick. It's something you can do. Every entrepreneur and every investor can do it. The more money you make, the more tax breaks you qualify for. That is absolutely true, but only if someone's guiding the strategy. Because what happens is that you go, oh, I'm in a higher tax bracket now. I'm just going to pay more taxes. In fact, I can't tell you how many times I've been told that their accountant told them, hey, you should be happy you made a lot of money this year, so of course you're going to pay more tax. I'm going, no, not of course. Taxes are not inevitable. They say death and taxes are the only two things that aren't inevitable. I don't know that death's even inevitable anymore, but taxes definitely are not inevitable. If you understand how the game actually works, then you can pay fewer taxes, which when you have more money to invest. So that compounding I was just talking about, it actually accelerates. You can invest more and more and more. And frankly, if you learn how to use debt, then it can really be exponential. So how should you get paid? This is a really interesting question. That's the first question, right? Tax advisors should ask you, how do you make your money? But then how should you actually get paid? Should it be you personally who gets paid? Or should it be your business entity, like a limited liability company?
Well, think about why you bought gold in the first place. It wasn't just to have shiny metal sitting in a vault. It was for freedom, security, and long-term wealth. But here's the problem. Most gold just sits there. It doesn't grow. It doesn't pay you. And month after month, you're really no better off. Now, you're no worse off because gold tends to retain its value, but you're not better off. You're not adding ounces of gold. Monetary metals changes that. They make it possible to earn a real return paid in gold, so your ounces grow every single month. Imagine looking at your account and seeing more gold than you had the month before without adding a single dollar of capital. That's the dream. Owning an asset that protects your wealth and compounds it at the same time. So if you want your gold to do more than just sit still, go to monetary-metals.com/CPA and see how your ounces can finally start growing. That's monetary-metals.com/CPA.
I'm going to tell you every time you're going to be better off if it's your company that gets paid, which means that your agreement has to not be between you and the person paying you, but between your company and the person paying your company. So do the work, have the company, you work for your company, the company works for your customers. Why do we do that? Because if you're making over $75,000 and you're still taxed as a sole proprietor, you're probably losing $10,000 to $15,000 a year just in employment taxes. It's not income taxes, just employment taxes. So here's the thing. If your business is a limited liability company or a corporation, if you want to keep even more money in your pocket over the next 30 days without changing your business or working more, I put together a free guide that shows you how. There are simple tax strategies I use with my clients every day, and they can put real money back in your bank account fast. But here's the thing. We're only giving away 50 free copies. Once they're gone, they're gone. So if you want it, don't wait. Click the link below to download your copy right now. So what's the real difference between a tax preparer and a tax strategist? So a preparer is always looking backwards and a strategist is always looking forwards. Now that doesn't mean as a tax strategist, I'm not looking at what's happened today. I do want to know. I want to understand your history. I want to understand everything about you. I want to understand your relationship with money, your family's relationship with money, your relationship with your family when it comes to money, what you want to do with your money when you die. I want to understand all of those things. Why is that? Because I'm looking at this from a holistic viewpoint. Taxes Taxes affect every single thing we do every single day of our life. They have a huge impact. We do things without even thinking about them because of taxes. It's like, why would anybody put their money in a 401k where they have no access to it without paying a penalty? They're putting it voluntarily, and to take it out, they have to pay a penalty, or they have to borrow and ask for their own money back. They can't take it out till they're 60, basically, right? When they do take it out, they pay tax on it, and they can only invest in things that the government tells them they can invest it in. Why would you do that voluntarily? Well, the only reason you do it is because of taxes. So you may think, hey, taxes aren't that big a deal, but let me tell you, things that you are doing every day, they have an impact on your taxes, whether you like it or not. So what you want to do is you want to always be looking forward, and you want to make sure you've got a guide that looks forward with you. So when I look at who pays the least amount of tax, a couple of things that I notice. First of all, I notice that they are talking to their accountant on a regular basis. They're not relying on AI to do their tax strategy. AI, you ask the wrong questions, will give you absolutely bogus answers. Everybody should know that by now. We can't be relying on AI, right? We can't be relying on what we know or what our neighbor tells us or something like that. So what do people who really pay few taxes do? I will tell you, they do a very few key things. First of all, they understand that who, not how applies in this situation. In other words, they need a really good who. They need a guide that's a tax strategist to walk them through it. Second of all, they understand that it's not their guide's job to take the actions to pay less tax. That's your job. It's the taxpayer's job to change their facts in order to change their tax. It's the tax strategist's job to tell them what facts to change and give them an option, right? Wouldn't you rather have a choice of whether to pay high taxes or not? Now, you may choose to pay high taxes. You may choose not to make that vacation a business trip. I do that all the time. I choose not to do business when I'm on vacation. So I'm choosing to pay higher taxes, but I factor that in to the cost of my vacation. If I want to reduce the cost of my vacation, it's great. I can get a discount from the government, and I just have to do those things that would allow my vacation to be deductible. I know how to do them. Question is, do you know how to do them? And are you have somebody with you who's helping you make these decisions on a regular basis? The other thing I notice is that those who are paying less taxes are investing their money the way the government wants them to invest it. They have become very focused in what they invest in. They're doing those things that the government wants them to do the way the government wants them to do it. They're not skirting the law. They're not cheating on their taxes. They're simply doing things that the government has placed as incentives in the tax law so that they can pay less tax. So very first thing they did was they understood that being an entrepreneur or professional investor, those are the two key professions that allow you to pay less tax. That's the first thing they did. That's the first fact they had to change. Look, if you're not a business owner, you are missing out. If you're not an investor, you're missing out. So if you're willing to take the actions, if you're willing to change your facts, then here's what you can do to stop overpaying. Ask your CPA one question. What would you change today to lower my tax bill next year? And if they don't have a good answer, it may be time to upgrade it. No, it is time to upgrade. If you're paying more taxes than you think you should be paying, you might want a second opinion. Once you stop overpaying the IRS, the next step is protecting the wealth you've built, because success makes you a target. In this next video, I'll show you how to protect your business, your income, and your freedom. Click the video on screen or down below, and I'll show you how the wealthy stay protected and how you can too.